Hello, welcome back to the channel, and today we'll be doing a first of our college preview videos. I think one of the more interesting teams that we can talk about this upcoming offseason, surprisingly, is the Alabama Crimson Tide. Obviously, major turnover with Nick Saban leaving, bringing in DeBoer from Washington, and that crazy offense that they were looking at trying to get with Grubb a few years ago. Now they have the head coach DeBoer, and he brings over some guys with him. But overall, people are kind of sleeping on Alabama, which I think is a crazy thing to say. Obviously, a lot of people view it as Nick Saban was kind of the team, but obviously there was a Alabama before Nick Saban. Was it as good as him? No. Obviously, going back to Bear Bryant days, of course, but until he got back there, it was kind of a middling-ish program, still above average, but it is what it is. But now you look at it, and they got a pretty fun schedule as well. The expanded SEC. It's a great time for a new era to come in. A lot of teams coming in, teams feeling better, but will Bama still be there? I think so. When you look at Alabama, you can look at DraftKings here. They have they are plus 850 to win the SEC. They are plus 1400 to win the championship. They are even money to make the college football playoff, and their win total has an over/under of 9.5, projected 10 wins, and that is plus 120. So really, they think they're going to go 9-3 or worse. Which would be obviously a colossal failure for a team with as many 5-star and as high talent as they do have in Tuscaloosa still, regardless of a relatively mass exodus following the departure of Nick Saban. But overall, they've still got a lot of really good pieces, and they also brought in a bunch. And I think obviously when you think of college football, you think of the quarterback position. And those of you that didn't really follow college football beforehand would have not heard of much of a guy out of Indiana named Micheal Penix. You obviously know him now as the Washington quarterback who took Washington to the brink of a title, obviously running into the freight train that is the Michigan Wolverines. But he was a pretty, I would say above average, kind of fun, fantasy style. You'd be like a ball knower if you're like, oh, that quarterback from Indiana, he's really good. You probably know him from the game where he extended out and was short or not short, depending on if you're a Penn State fan or not, against Indiana in the COVID year. I believe COVID year. It might have been 2019 or 2020, one of the two. And then obviously the other game, if people know him from, really is that 2020 game against Ohio State was an absolute shootout. That game was incredible. I think it was him versus Justin Fields, and it was just points everywhere. They ended up, Ohio State was it was weird that they were comfortably in control despite it being a 2-score game, 1-score game, but it was a lot closer than people would have thought. And when I think of, you look at what he did with Micheal Penix, he being DeBoer, and Nick Sheridan, who is the now new offensive coordinator, I believe, and quarterbacks coach. I think he might be just the offensive coordinator. Quickly check him here. Offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for Alabama. They got the most out of Micheal Penix. And you look at what Jalen Milroe was last year, and despite me being a Michigan fan and seeing him firsthand get sacked a lot, he's one of the better raw athletes you've seen. Try not to get into too many brutal stereotypes, about him being a running back. I mean, he's built like a running back, and as good as a way of it is. He's very quick twitch. The lazy comparison is like Lamar Jackson, but I think he's a bit better of a passer than what people would think of saying Lamar is. I'm not saying he's a better passer than Lamar. What I'm trying to say is people think of Lamar Jackson, as a running back with that can throw it a couple times. That's more of an Alex Orji type at Michigan, but Milroe has the ability to run when needed, is I think what you would say, and obviously way above average. You can call some runs for him. He can scramble and extend plays, which is kind of what you need in today's NFL/college football era. You look at a guy like J.J. McCarthy. He can extend plays and keep it alive, and Milroe is significantly better than that. Than him there. You mean Caleb Williams running around. You almost have that break, like when the play breaks down. That's when, big games are won. If the play breaks down, you run around scrambling for your life with a chicken with its head cut off. He's really good at that. I mean, look at the game against Auburn, the 4th and 31 or whatever it was. He was just, running around, scrambling, keeping alive. Granted, they only rushed like 2, which is dumb, but it is Auburn. But he was able to extend the play and throw a seed in the back corner. I don't see anyone talking about how bad his arm was there, right? But yeah, he had a 65% completion, 66% completion last year. He had 2,834 yards, averaging 10 yards a pass, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, with 44 sacks, which is a ton. But you look at his rushing stats, he had 161 carries for 531 yards, averaging 3.5 a carry on 12 touchdowns with a long of 53. But again, you got to remember that he was dealing with 44 sacks, and obviously negative rush yards for quarterbacks are a thing in college. So obviously he had significantly more than that. So having 531 yards as a running back as a quarterback in college is very good. So I'm very excited to see what DeBoer does with him. I think it's a pretty easy thing to say that he's better than Micheal Penix was at Indiana. So he's got a way better point to work from, because we look at Micheal Penix, his stats, granted in a very shortened COVID season, 2021, even 2020, excuse me, before he had the injuries and stuff the other years. He had a 56% completion percentage, so not as good. 1,600 yards, 14 touchdowns, 4 picks with 7 sacks. And he rushed 18 times for 25 yards. So, not nearly as much of a rusher as Milroe does, which adds a whole different animal to it. Because you even saw Penix was running the ball a bit against Texas, and it kind of extended plays and made things there. Because, the 1 or 2 big clutch runs is all you need. Like when you think of Mahomes, you're like, he's not a running quarterback, but he's able to get those runs when needed. Even, I can say the same thing with J.J. McCarthy, with Aaron Rodgers even, right? Aaron Rodgers isn't a mobile quarterback, but he's able to get some runs. He can be a mobile quarterback, and that adds a whole different dynamic to it. Like a Justin Fields type guy, where it's like he's a really good passer and can run. That's what I think DeBoer will, probably try to teach him and turn him into. And again, I'm very, very, very excited to see what happens with that. Because again, Nick Sheridan, as much as he drove me insane as a player at Michigan and was one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen, he's turned into a hell of a coach. He worked his way up. He was a grad assistant at Tennessee, South Florida, Western Kentucky, and then went to Indiana for a bunch, and then was on the Washington staff. He was a tight ends coach last year, but he obviously had a lot of impact in the offense as well. I know Grubb is still in Washington, but he's coaching for the Seattle Seahawks. But he's now the coordinator here. So I think he's going to be an upgrade on Tommy Rees. I think Tommy Rees was kind of a bit of a scapegoat at times last year, but my goodness, he had some brutal plays. But again, cannot overstress how excited I am for the offense with Alabama. And obviously it's a quarterback league, right? When you think of an elite team, you need to have a really good quarterback, whether that be, a solid, a super elite team with a solid quarterback, or an elite quarterback that brings everyone up. And again, Milroe is going to be incredible this year. I cannot look at his Heisman odds currently in New York, but I would think about that very strongly. I know he had a bit of a turnover issue, but again, I think with working with an offensive coach like him, he's going to be able to, with DeBoer and Sheridan, he's going to be able to calm him down. Now let's talk about everything else going on. They still got a lot of defensive talent. Yes, they lost Caleb Downs. They bring in Keon Saab from Michigan to help with that. So that's helpful. They bring in Damani Jackson from USC over Michigan as well coming in. So they've got some good pieces on defense. Obviously, still a lot of talent. They lose a ton every year, but they bring in a ton. They still have, I think it's like 15 5-stars or something crazy. Like, the talent level is absolutely unbelievable over there, as everyone would know. So they still got guys absolutely everywhere. They brought in a good kicker to replace one of the best kickers I've ever seen in Will Riker. They bring in Graham Nicholson, who won the best kicker award. I think it's Lou Garza award, I believe, for special teams guy of the year from Miami, Ohio. So that's another great addition. And overall, they're ready to roll. Now you look at the schedule, right? Western Kentucky, they're like a 30-point favorite against South Florida. My guy Bynum Brown will be playing against them. I'll probably take the over in that game, because the Tennessee disciple from Heupel is the coach of that. I forgot the guy's name. I apologize, for USF. Could be my second team if I end up going down to Tampa later this year. Good stuff there. Then they go at Wisconsin, one of like the fun, crazy games, like in honor of NCAA coming back this summer. That's a game like you'd schedule as Wisconsin. Like, I want to host Bama. Let's boost our ratings, get some better BCS metrics there. That game actually does have a line. I know the first one has a line too. Western Kentucky, like a 35-point favorite. But they play Wisconsin on the road. They're an 8-point favorite at noon. So that'd be a good test for them to go up north and jump around at noon on Big Noon kickoff. Then the next week, they have a bye week before Georgia at home, which I think is an incredible thing for them. They are a 4.5-point underdog at home. I'm trying to think, when's the last time Bama was underdog at home? Was it maybe when Joe Burrow came to town when they had Tua? I think maybe. They wouldn't have Saban as an underdog at home, right? That'd be crazy. I mean, I remember when Saban was an underdog, like people would make a big fuss about it regardless of location. But obviously, They beat Georgia in the last meeting. Clearly, different staff though this time. I can't already wait for people talking about this game as one of the games of the year in the first month. Again, I love that they play them this early. So you might be able to pop Georgia at home. That's probably going to be a loss, but that's obviously a game you can easily win. It's a game that if you win, you're like, whoa, like they're back. And I think this is one of these teams where I always think of future betting as teams you want to like stocks, right? Hey, I think they're gonna have good earnings. Their first quarter earnings in this scenario would be playing Georgia at the end of September, right? Your first third of the season. So if you beat Georgia, your odds are going to go way down. Even if they play tough against Georgia, they're going to have good odds. Even getting the playoff, right? If they beat Georgia, it's like, hey, they're in the playoff. So it's another game you can think about it like that. Obviously, they can lose to Georgia and still make the playoff because these games have significantly less value than they have in years past. But you beat Georgia, it's like, whoa, okay, Bama is still here because they will be. Then you've got at Vanderbilt. Let's get serious here. Then they have South Carolina at home. I do like South Carolina, obviously, with Beamer and the guys, but come on. At Tennessee, surprisingly, this game is in the third Saturday in October. No kidding. It's the name of the rivalry. At Neyland, though, this year, Tennessee fans are getting excited, my father included. And you look at them, they are a 2-point favorite on the road in Neyland. So that's something to really factor in there. That's going to be another game with awesome quarterbacks. If Nico is him and everybody that is following the sport thinks he's very good, including myself, that game could get tough pretty quick. Heupel is really cooking, and that's going to be Tennessee's Super Bowl. It usually is. Obviously they beat him last time in Neyland. I don't need to remind anybody of that. One of the best games probably any of us have ever seen, with the uprights getting ripped down. I think they can make that game really competitive. And again, these are the games you need to win, like one or two of these split games. I think Bama and Michigan have very similar like roster situations where it's a lot of turnover with the staffs. Obviously they could have a quarterback and Michigan doesn't, but you got to win one of like your two or three big games. Obviously you have a few games coming up here soon. At home, you have Missouri at home. Everyone's talking about Missouri is this dark horse team, blah, 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 blah. -8.5 at home. So I know Vegas isn't everything, and Bama's probably getting a little bit of juice baked in them because they're Bama, but you're a touchdown favorite comfortably at home. So that's the game that, I think Sharps will probably be on Missouri. But, at this point, we'll really know who they are. I doubt you're going to get a spread of 8.5 time this game comes around. If Bama beats Georgia and or Tennessee, this game started to be farther out. If they lose to both, clearly it'll be a tighter spread. But this will be a game they need to win. Could it be a trap game? Yes. Will this be like the 2000 IQ, I'm going to be cute and pick Missouri over Alabama pick of the week? Yes. You'll have some some smart ass will come in on College Game Day. I'm kind of liking the Tigers, blah, 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 blah. No, come on. Let's get serious, guys. And then you got a big one. Always a fun game. Another bye week for them over the first week of November. You'll have on the 2nd of November, you'll have LSU November 9th at LSU. So, say what you want about Bama getting their scheduling. They have a bye week before Georgia and LSU. They're two of their biggest games of the season. They are a 1-point dog in this game, basically a pick 'em. It's a tough game. LSU, obviously a huge step down at quarterback, going from Jaden Daniels winning the Heisman to Nussmeier, but they still got a lot of talent on that team. They always do. I'm not as high on LSU as I have been in years past. I know I was high on them last year. I think kind of everyone was with the sexy quarterback and stuff like that. But this game's always competitive in Death Valley. So I know they beat them obviously last time they were there as well. A lot of teams got a win against Bama the last time they played them in their location. It was kind of crazy. But I think that LSU. I think Tennessee would pop them. Not Tennessee pop them. I think Bama will pop them here. Sorry, looking at Tennessee right above them. But one of the games of the year. Always is. Don't even need to tell you about it. But for sure, again, this is one of these toss-up games they need to win, right? When you look at their schedule, you got Bama. Bama's got Tennessee, Georgia, and LSU as their big toss-up games. You can win one of those three, and we're cooking. Then have Mercer in like the usual game, get right game before, again, another big game in Norman at Oklahoma. They're a 2-point favorite on the road. This is your last year games. I'm not a big believer in Oklahoma, but by the end of the year, they're going to be a tough team to play. Venables always will have a good defense. They got a lot of talent on that team. Jackson Arnold, I think is the guy. So if he is, by this point, we will very much know. Again, like the Missouri game, this is a spread. You'll probably have a totally different spread going into this game, but I believe that they have enough talent to get over the hump and beat Oklahoma. So, you're beating Oklahoma. You're going to probably beat Tennessee. And I think you could beat LSU, right? Georgia even, right? Those are the 4 toss-up games, really 3. And you beat 2, maybe even 3 of them. Obviously, we're talking playoffs. We're hitting the win total over. You need to win. You split those. You win 2 of those, and you're going to have the toughest of the 3 at home, right? You do have 3 tough road games. You win 1 of them, and then you beat Georgia at home. We're talking, potentially SEC championship game at 8.5 to 1. And then finally, they have the Iron Bowl at home. It's the Iron Bowl, so you can never take it lightly. Vegas has them as a 15-point favorite, so you maybe can take it a little bit lightly. But Hugh Freeze, that's his Super Bowl currently with the State of Auburn program. So that game always has crazy stuff happen. I mean, you think of the game a few years ago, like the double, triple overtime game with Mechie going insane, or Mechie, excuse me, going insane. Yeah, but that's kind of what we have for the video. Another underrated thing that they brought in was Courtney Morgan, the general manager from Washington, who was at Michigan, helps recruit Keon Sabb, who's now at Bama, Zeke Berry, who's starting for Michigan, and a lowly guy, little 3.5, 4-star D lineman out of Servette, Anaheim, Mason Graham. Ever heard of him? Pretty good player. So if you can get big guys like that to go to Michigan, very, very, very high impact players, you have 4-star Saab and 4-star Mason Graham. What can you bring to Bama? The sky is the ceiling. I don't know what the exact saying is, but it's close to that. So I personally am high on Bama this year. I know I give them a lot of crap because we beat them in the Rose Bowl, but it's not very often you beat Nick Saban. So you can probably count on the number of, on 1 or 2 hands, the big games that Saban lost. And I'm happy to say that we're one of them. So overall, I'm very excited to see what Bama does this year. Again, one of the craziest teams to predict this year, probably, because you got, 8 or so pretty locked in wins, comfortably in spreads in Vegas. And then you got a few toss-up games in there. You win 2 of them, you cash the win total over. I will be taking the over when I do my season bet total. That'll be one of my big bets for sure. Even making the playoff, they'll probably cook in Bama. It'll be fun to see Bama probably as a road playoff team. They probably have Texas and Georgia above them in the SEC. I'm trying to think who else. Maybe Ole Miss, but it's tough to believe with Ole Miss year after year, even as a big lane guy like myself. So, as everyone will be telling you, and as I've said a few times, it's just so exciting to see what Bama's could do this year as a wild card team. They still have that Crimson A still puts the fear of God in people when you see it come up. I know it did me in a little bit at the beginning of the Rose Bowl. It was like, okay, we're going against Bama. I was still confident, but obviously with Saban on the sideline, it's a pretty impact. You think of the video game. There was the top upgrade you could get was, the Saban effect. That was the top of video game you could get in the recruiting on the old NCAA 14. So, but he's gone now. You bring in DeBoer, and we'll see how it all goes. Let me down below what you think about Alabama. If you think I'm, believing in the script A too much, or if you think I'm not high enough, or Vegas is too low and I'm the rest of the country. So, that's all I got for now. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.